Poverty can feel like a trap, and even the supports aimed at helping can act as chains that keep people from escaping it. One Toronto-based program helps young women change their futures with a combination of education, empowerment, and social support. Denise Whitter is the founder and executive director of the New Beginnings Support Program. Denise, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Amanda. I really appreciate it.
I do want to start with this concept of the trap that we can see people get into. Well-meaning supports are in place, but they have clawbacks if you get extra income here or there, or they prevent you from doing things you might otherwise do. Is the system working in favor of people that are in it? In other words, are we helping people get out of poverty?
We actually don't think so. We deal with a lot of women who want to get off the system. And the challenge is that there are drawbacks. So if you make a certain amount over, let's say, $200 a month, then it'll be taken dollar for dollar after that. And there was an article many years ago from the Toronto Star that said it's better to be on welfare than to have a minimum wage job. And with the high cost of living in Ontario, plus they will no longer have their rent subsidized if they do find full-time work, even though it will be a lot more money for them, and probably about 60% of their rent is from their income. And as you know, as a financial expert, that it is supposed to be no more than 30%.
Right. So tell me, at New Beginnings, you do more than lots of places, of course, help one way or another. Yours is a fairly holistic approach that demands a kind of a long time commitment from your participants. What is it that you're trying to do, and what's different about it?
Well, the reason why we take a holistic approach, because it's not just about finding a job. It's about developing the whole woman and person so that they can feel better about themselves, their lives, their life situation, and be comfortable of taking care of themselves and their children.
And so, well, let's start with, obviously, there's an educational component. What do you ask of your participants? What's the commitment that you require from them? And then what do they get back?
It is a long time commitment. It's a full year and a full year follow-up. We have partnered with the Humber College department to do a business office technology certificate program, and that's the higher education piece that we hope when we go to corporations that they'll take at least 1% of the people that they hire and consider hiring low-income, underserved, marginalized communities. Mm-hmm. And of course, one of the things I like about New Beginnings, Denise, is it changes not just the life of that person, but their whole family. Often mothers heading single-family households with kids involved. The biggest reward for you in what you see in the people who go through New Beginnings? They feel better about themselves. Some of them that come into our program feel broken. And then when they go through the years program and they transition and transform, it is wonderful to see their kids benefit. And the goal really is not just to find gainful employment, but livable wage employment. So government, I hope you're listening.
One last question, Denise. You have lived experience with living in low income. What do you think is one of the myths about that most of us have about people who are living in poverty?
So the biggest myth is that people want to stay on the system. And from my experience, most do not. There's sure going to be a small portion that want to stay on the system. Many want to get off, but they need that support from the government to be able to get off without the rent, the dental and drug benefits. All of that needs to be in place for at least a year so that they can transition comfortably off the system and not come back a year and a half to 2 years later.
Denise, so good to have you for this. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Denise Whitter is Executive Director of the New Beginnings Support Program.
Thank you.
Time for the takeaway and casting a wider net. It seems that when it comes to poverty, we still do have some old ideas hanging around. Dickensian concepts like people get what they deserve, or they have it coming, or if only they worked harder, they wouldn't find themselves in this fix. But of course, we know better. The data don't lie. The majority of Canadians living in poverty are children, literally born into it, or can't work because of physical disability. Others struggle with systemic, multi-generational headwinds of racism, unequal access to education, and mental illness or addiction. But once we agree that no one among us should have less than what it takes to live a decent, dignified life, and the billions we spend on our social safety nets suggest we already agree on that, the answer isn't that hard to find. In fact, we have a model for poverty busting staring us in the face. Universal health care is a simple but beautiful principle that unites us all with one concept: everyone deserves it and no one will go without. It's the great equalizer in this country that creates a bond between citizens we never need to think about or question. And with it comes a sense of responsibility by the haves towards the have-less. Why not port that same mentality to standard of life? Let's drop the word poverty from our vocabulary and instead agree that every human should be sheltered, fed, clothed, and nourished with education and opportunity, that doing less than that makes us all lesser. If we can agree on that, it simply becomes a matter of how. One possible answer is a universal basic income, an amount every Canadian is entitled to, just as we're entitled to health care, an amount that is sufficient not just to exist, but to thrive. Research has shown that when people have just a little more than the bare minimum, they will leverage it for even more education, better housing, a better job. We might find that the cost of such a universal plan was about the same as the antiquated patchwork, dehumanizing system we have now. My takeaway? Agreeing that everyone should have what they need to fulfill their potential doesn't need to be a dream. We already know it can work. We just have to want it badly enough. That's Taking Stock for this week. I'm Amanda Lang. Thanks for being with us.